I got a brand new camera. Let's talk about it. Recently, I picked up the Sony FX30 and I really, really like it. I've only had it for about a week now, so this video isn't gonna be like a super deep dive review type video like all the other videos of this camera have been. This is mostly just gonna be the reasons I like it and my first impressions on this camera. Spoiler alert, my first impressions are very, very good, but there's no surprise there. It's a Sony camera, no surprise there. So here's the camera itself. It is a little tiny camera. I have it on a tripod and I have a Condor Blue like quick release on it, and this is like, bro, this is the perfect size. Like this is, let me talk about the things that I like about this camera, and then I'll talk about the things that I don't like about it, because although I'm hyping it up crazy, it's not a perfect camera and it does have its flaws, although they're very small flaws, none that are big enough to be like, oh, this is a turn off to the camera, but definitely enough to like mention it. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the things that I like about it. So I actually made a list so I can stay on track, because that's one thing I'm trying to do better with these videos, is kind of not just ramble on. I want to keep it more concise and just stay on track. So I actually have a list that I made. Let me get my phone for that. So the obvious first thing that I like about this camera is that it's really, really small and it's really, really light. The FX30 is a crop sensor camera, which I know for some people that's going to be a turnoff, super 35 versus full frame. Personally, I don't care. I started off with a crop sensor camera, and because of that, I have a bunch of crop sensor lenses already. And basically this camera is replacing my A6400 for me as my take everywhere camera, because it has a lot better video and it still is able to take photos. And I'm not the type of photographer to do like burst shots anyways, which this camera unfortunately can't do. So that the fact that I can't do that isn't really a turn off for me. I do single shot autofocus all the time anyways, and if I have to use manual focus, I can do that as well. So this camera can do all the photo functionalities that I needed to, as well as have a lot better video, all while being in a very small package. Now it isn't like super duper tiny, it's still a little bit girthier than my A6400, so I'm giving up a little bit with that, but it is just as light and just as small of a footprint with the lens that I have attached to it. So this build that I have for it is actually just the body alone, a Condor Blue quick release, and my Peak Design quick release little straps. And then the lens that I'm rocking on this bad boy to bring everywhere is the Sony 16mm f2.8 pancake lens. And the reason I chose a pancake lens and not another 16mm like the Sigma 16mm, which I do have, is because it is such a tiny little package. And I'm mostly using this camera for video, so I don't need like the most ultra crazy sharp image out of this thing. So I don't really need to go out and spend a ton of money on a really, really crazy super sharp lens, because the 16mm gets the job done. It translates to story, and I think at the end of the day, that's way more important to me than having super amazing video quality. Not that this doesn't have super amazing video quality. It does, which I'll show you guys as I'm talking, but it's really good video quality as well as being really, really tiny. And it's just, that's one of the biggest reasons I got this camera, because I wanted it, because I really like how small and compact it is. Now talking about how small and compact it is, let's talk about how functional its design actually is as well, because although it's small and compact, it is super duper functional, and it's because it is a cine camera. So it's in the cine line of Sony cameras. Because of this, it has a lot more buttons than my A6400, which it is replacing. And it has tally lights, so you can actually see yourself if you're recording, if you know you're recording or not. With my A7S III, sometimes, I don't know if I'm recording or not, because I don't have my screen swiveled forward. When the little red light is on, I know that it's recording and I know that I am good to go. The FX30 also has a swivel screen, which is nice. You can see yourself, frame yourself, do stuff like that. It has a bunch of mounting holes all around it, which is nice, because that means I can attach my tripod in a bunch of different areas without needing to bring an extra cage, which is really, really nice. It keeps the form factor really small for me. It has a full HDMI port, which is huge, because I don't like mini HDMI ports. I don't think anyone likes mini HDMI ports. I think we've, as a society, moved past the need for mini HDMI. So the fact that this has full HDMI in its small body is a huge win, and just a huge bonus to the functionality of this thing. I can use it with my monitor. I can use it with basically anything that accepts HDMI, which these days is basically every screen ever. It has 2 SD card slots. I'm not a big redundancy person, so that doesn't really, isn't something that I really looked forward to when I got it, but it is nice to have, and they are SD and CF Express compatible, so that's really nice. It has a mic in as well as a headphone jack, so you can do mic in and headphone at the same time, which is always a plus. I'm not usually doing that, but it is nice knowing that I have that as an option. And overall, it just has a bunch of really good functionality to the build and the button mapping itself. You can actually go in the software and make any button do whatever you want, which is really nice because you can really customize it that way. And with the introduction of that front button, this little guy right here, you can actually just click this and start recording. So you don't have to like reach around and hit the shutter or the dedicated record button. So I have like 4 different ways to start recording on this camera, which is really, really nice. Next up, let's talk about the video performance from this thing, because the video performance on this camera is really, really good. It's the reason I got it. So you can do 4K 10-bit. It is downsampled from 6K, so it has a little bit more detail than the A7S3. I'm not, again, a huge, crazy, detailed type of person. If it gets the job done, it gets the job done. But it does 4K 24, 4K 30, 4K 60, 4K 120, and it does, I think, HD up to 240. So you have a lot of range and latitude with this camera when it comes to video. It records in Sony's codec, which is XAVC, and like a couple of different flavors of it. So XAVC SI, XAVC S HD, XAVE, you know what I'm talking about. You Sony boys, you know. So it has a bunch of different video codecs. It does 420, 422. It does, I think, you can like external record ProRes RAW if you need. Not really. So I shoot with like this most compressed video format. I like my little XAVCS 45 megabit per second 10-bit 420. That's my go-to because I'm recording a lot, so I just prefer to capture the moment rather than capture cinema level color grading footage all the time. But this camera can do it, and that is amazing, and I like it. And the video from it is phenomenal. The dynamic range is really, really nice. I don't know exactly how many stops of dynamic range it has. Gerald Dunn says it has like 14 stops, I think, which is on par with my A7S III. The colors on it are really nice. The few sunny day videos I've been able to take with it, because it has been raining here in California, the few sunny day videos I've been able to take with it have been really, really nice. And finally, it has IBIS. So my A6400 doesn't have IBIS, and that's a really big bummer because you get really bad shakes. And this camera has IBIS. It has the standard IBIS, and it also has the IBIS Plus, which is like, software IBIS, but it's really, really good. And if you're not like sprinting, it'll get the job done. It's not as good as Lumix, but it's, you win some, you lose some, and it's like good enough. It's good enough for what I need it to do. It's good enough that your footage isn't like ridiculously shaky. It does have a little bit of shake sometimes depending on how much you're actually moving around, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty good IBIS. And that's one thing that I really, really wanted to make sure that this camera had. Next up, battery life. Let's talk about the battery life. So this thing is using the same battery as my A7S III, which is the Sony like Z line battery, which is like the bigger one. My A6400 was using those little tiny old batteries, which just not good batteries. Like, they did not last. I would go through literally like 2 or 3 of them if I was out and actually shooting as much time with this one. With this camera, I can, just bring one battery type for all of my cameras, because my A7 III, my A7S III, and the FX30 all use the same battery now. So I can always have a hot battery ready to go, fully charged up, and swap it between any of my cameras, which is super, super nice. And because it's a bigger battery, this thing has a really, really good battery life. I have it set to like power save mode in 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds, it like goes dormant, and I just keep it on all day. And whenever I need it, I just, click a little bit, boom, turns on, take my video, goes dormant, and I'm ready to go. And it just feel like it's always on because it is such a long lasting battery. I'll go through maybe like 40% in a day of just constant shooting, and not like continuous shooting, but like shooting throughout the day. So it's like, I don't have to worry about my battery dying, which is what I really am trying to explain here. So we talked about the things that I like about this camera. Let's talk about the 2 things that I don't like about this camera and that I'm not like head over heels for. So the first thing is a little bit of an annoyance. It is eventually going to go away, but right now, currently, Lightroom does not support the RAW files from this camera, which is kind of a bummer because I can't really test out its photo capabilities if the way that I normally test them out, which is do an actual photo shoot, because then I would have to go and single edit every single photo, which I'm not trying to do. I can open the photos and view them in Photoshop and in Camera Raw, but for some reason, Lightroom Classic still does not support them, which is a bit of a bummer, and neither does the Adobe DNG converter. So I can't even convert them to DNG like I could with the A6400 when that first came out. So that's a bit of a bummer, but that's also one of those things that's eventually going to get fixed. So not a huge, not a huge flaw with the camera. Second thing I don't like about this camera, it's not weather sealed. It is like, according to Sony, it's water and dust resistant. What that means, I don't really know. I couldn't tell you. But I can't imagine it's that water resistant, considering there's a huge hole where the fan exhaust is, and that huge hole is a perfect place for water and other things to get, make their way into the camera. So it's not, it's raining right now. I would not be comfortable having it out in the rain because I would fear that it would, water would splash in it and it would fry itself, and I would be out of a couple $1,000s. So it's not waterproof or resistance or anything. As much as Sony says it is, I don't trust it. So it's just, big holes, water can easily get in. So I don't really trust that. Which is another thing I don't really like, because my A7S3, fully water resistant, my A7 III, water resistant, once all the flaps are closed, water's not getting in there. If you pair it with a water sealed lens, like, you're good to go. You can go and take photos in the rain. You can go and take video in the rain. You're good to go. This little guy, I don't think he's making it. I don't think he's making it in the rain. So that's another thing I don't really like. And then the third thing that I don't like about this camera, I just dropped my phone. And one thing that I think this is probably the most like, I wish it was better. I know it could be better. Sony, I know you can do better than this. Its low light isn't amazing, which is, when you're talking about a Sony camera, Sony, the king of low light. The FX30 isn't amazing when it comes to low light. Its dual ISO is like 800 and 2500. That's it. It's not, it couldn't even give us 4000. Like, come on, Sony. Come on. So that's another thing that I was like, I was looking for when I was browsing what cameras were available. And that was like kind of a big punch in the gut, because I'm like, me, I love my low light, and I plan on using I do a lot of stuff with low light, and I can't really do that with this camera. Sure, I compare it with like my Sigma lenses, which are all 1.4, but at the end of the day, I just wish this would be better in low light, and that's not really something you can change with software or anything. So I could get like a speed booster and get like an extra stop of light with all my lenses and whatnot, but then that adds to the girth of the camera, which is what I was trying to combat. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's honestly something that almost ruined it for me. But all of the positives of this camera far outweigh those three negative things for me. And at the end of the day, this camera is something that I wanted because I want to start filming a lot more in 2023. I want to start making more YouTube videos. I want to start making more videos in general. I want to document my life more. And in order to do that, I need a camera that's small, powerful, and I can bring everywhere with me, because the camera that is the best camera that you have is a camera that I have on you. And I have literally been bringing this camera everywhere and just documenting little things. And the B-roll that you guys have seen in this video has all been shot with my FX30, and it just felt a lot more comfortable bringing this thing with me everywhere, and it's the perfect camera for that. A7S III is a little bit too big for my liking because it's a full frame. You have bigger lenses. If I take this thing off the tripod, if I can do that right now, can I do this? There we go. I can bring this everywhere. This is super small. It's super discreet. Like, no one's gonna think this is a professional camera. I mean, look at this lens. It's like tiny. You're not gonna think that this is a professional camera. Like, you're not looking at this and thinking, this guy needs a permit to film here. No, you're not thinking that. But it's giving me really good video quality, and it's a sleeper build is what it is. But it's the perfect camera for me. And I was looking on the market for something, and then this release, and I was like, ooh, this piques my interest. And I looked into it more. I'm like, yes, this is the camera for me. And so far, my first impressions of this camera has been amazing. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I don't think that I'm going to find anything in it that's going to be like ruining the experience for me. I genuinely love this camera. It's everything that I've been wanting in a camera for a long time. Overall, an amazing camera. I compare it as a B cam to my A7S III. It shoots S-Log3. It has great dynamic range. It's small, it's portable, it's powerful, it's functional. If I sound like a salesman to this camera, it's because I really love this camera. Sony, if you're watching, please sponsor me. Please. Give me your cameras. That about does it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on the FX30 is and if you would go out and cop it. Oh, other thing I forgot to mention, it's not that expensive. It's only $1,800, which not crazy expensive. Let me know what you guys think about the FX30. And yeah, if you guys aren't following me on social media, make sure you follow me at MoodyDarkRoom. That's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, Tumblr, Facebook. If it's a social media, I'm probably on it. And you should follow me on it because I like to post my photography. And if you like my photography, then you should support your boy and follow me on all those platforms. But with that being said, I have more content on the way. So make sure you subscribe, like, comment, do all this stuff that supports the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.